It looked like a 70s shoot 'em down in the street cop movie. It felt like Miami Vice. What was the inspiration for the look of the film?
You nailed it, so I'm really pleased that that's what came across. So, Kerry and I referenced a lot of 70s thrillers, particularly Pakula. I'm a huge fan of Pakula. It turned out the Parallax View ended up to be the kind of pertinent one. And we know, we stole it wholesale when he goes for the upgrade.
Yeah.
You know, that before shot, that's just a bike, straight off bike from Parallax. It was like us tipping our hat. You know. So, yeah, I mean, you know, my feeling is always that it's an old cliche, but it's absolutely true. You know, the look has to come from the story, and the phrase that I particularly like is that if the look overpowers the story, you're going to be lost. You know, so Kerry's fantastic. I wish she was here. You know, she's like my sister. I love her to bits. She's got an IQ of about 1,000. She wrote and directed it, and she's very political and very cinematic. You know, she's a cinema buff, and she loves cinema, and she wanted to put the two together. So we wanted to make a thriller that wasn't just guys running around shooting each other. We wanted to allude to the politics of South Africa. She's grown up in South Africa. She has an English mum, so she went to Oxbridge. You know, we wanted to have an international film, but it's definitely set in Cape Town, and it was political, so it wasn't just a thriller. It's set in Cape Town, yeah. So the look kind of came from the story, and then our flavours that we like. I think the golden age of cinema, the 70s American cinema. You know. And it hasn't really improved since then. So my Blu-ray collection is that. Yeah. Sorry.
It's degraded.
Degraded, yeah. I mean, you know, I moved to America to shoot movies. I'll shoot a Michael Bay movie. I'll take the paycheck. I'll make 11 cameras work. But this is the kind of thing that I want to do. You know.
Yeah.
So Kerry and I were hiking in Africa. She was a commercial producer in New York, and she found me, and we met in London. We shot commercial. We became firm friends. We kind of thought we fancied each other. We couldn't work it out. It turns out we're born on the same day. And it's some weird, you know. So now she's like my sister. You know. We never kid. Right? And then we stayed in touch, and then I went to stay with her in Cape Town one time over Christmas, and we went hiking. She told me about the story, and I said, well, just tell me where to be and when to show up. It doesn't matter what the money is or what happens. Just tell me the date, and I'll be there. And then I thought it would be like maybe a year or two. 8 years later, she got there. And we ended up, going for it. And we had no money, and that's what, you know, it's handheld, not necessarily because we wanted it to be handheld, but we just had to get it made. So, I'm proud of it. I've shot 14 films, and this is one that I'm pleased my name's on.
What did you shoot on?
We shot Red Epic, Anamorphic. I'm a huge proponent of Anamorphic. You know, we see in 3D, and we see spherically, and 3D is a producer's format, so I'm not interested in that. And spherical is really TV now. So if you go to the cinema, you want to be transported somewhere else, you want to see a story and be theatrically entertained. I think anamorphic is the only way. I grew up watching anamorphic films since I was a kid, and as soon as I see a scope, as soon as I see those tells that tell you it's anamorphic, to me I'm where I was when I was 12 watching Apocalypse Now and Star Wars and anything from the 70s.
And what kind of grade, sorry, just the other half of this, what kind of grading, what kind of postage do you want?
So, I don't know where it's been, what the pipeline's been since I graded it, but it's a little milkier now. The shooting lot I had was just ridiculously brave. It was like, basically it was just pure whites, no black detail at all, and just mid-tones. And for me, what I tried to do, and so they've lifted it a bit. I mean, the story originally was called Black Southeaster. When it cuts to Table Mountain and the cloud that comes over, that's called the Black Southeaster. And it comes in the fall, and it's usually a dirty cloud, not a white cloud, a black cloud. And it signifies a storm coming. And so if you're kind of African and you're part of that culture, you understand that culture, that was the kind of tell there. So it was supposed to be analogous to the storm coming for Caesar, Where was I going? So the grade that I shot with, for me it was about, it's a morality tale, And so for me it was about the duplicity hiding in the shadows. And so I wanted, really there were scenes when he starts getting dressed at the top, at the beginning of the movie, the whole right side of the frame is black when I was done, I think because after it was Black Southeaster, it didn't quite hit its audience, so they recut it as Cold Harbour, and now it's a much better film, I have to say. But part of it feeling a little difficult to penetrate was probably my grade was a little grey, so they opened it up a bit, I think. I've since then built my own result suite, so they don't get to do that.
Yes, I'm very interested in the Chinese angle. I recognize Yunnan as like, and
Yeah,
I also
you-
recognize the name of Peter Love and Lorna T, who are Malaysian producer living in
Right.
Rotterdam and an American producer living in Beijing. So could you talk about how the Chinese angle was worked out?
Well, Kerry, she wanted to make an international film, and the idea was that it was an international crime drama. So we pulled in, that aspect, and then when she was looking for an international star to play the lead, and she, also, Kerry and I are bleeding heart Democrats. I'm very proud to say that. You know what I mean? So, she was very keen to have a black lead, a strong female femme fatale. We were determined to use the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So she went, and I think they reached out to the Chinese government actually. They paid for Yunnan. We didn't have the money to afford it. She was just doing Expendables, her star's rising. She's a big star in China. So they paid first class for her to come on. She probably cost more than the whole rest of the movie. Yeah, she's good. She
It's a good face.
yeah.
And Lorna and Peter Love was something.
That I don't know. I can find out from Kerry for you, but I'm not sure of the details of that.
And another question is completely different. I've seen a number of movies with gangsters taking place in South Africa. There seems to be a fashion among gangsters to shave their head. We see this in specialists. Is this something that you?
I don't know. It's just every time I've had a fight with hair like this, you get something, So, what I can do is a very interesting dynamic between Fana, who plays specialist, and Tony, who plays Seaworth, who have both become friends. And for me, it was an experience to shoot the movie, but it was also a major kind of life experience for me, which was wonderful. So I've grown up in London, and for a long time I was involved with graffiti and hip hop, so I had a kind of mixed cultural experience. But I'm still white in a white world, and living in Cape Town for 6-8 weeks, I was in the house with all the black actors and some of the black crew. And it was a fascinating experience for me to be other, for me not to be the normal face, I suppose, if I can put it that way. And then sitting and talking with Fana and Tony was just an amazing experience. They're both playing characters who have a history where they politically were involved in the struggle. And in fact, that happened for real. So Fana's becoming a big star. He's in World War Z and a bunch of other films. Tony's a name in South Africa. But during the struggle, they really did fight. Fana is older than Tony. Tony was 15 at the time. Fana was older. And they were arrested and they were tortured, and she went down properly for real, like in a way that I could never relate to or understand. So listening to them was an amazing experience. There was one time when she finds him in the freight depot. There's a whole scene there where a dog gets released and chases him, first of all. And I was up a ladder, I got vertigo, I was up a ladder 60 feet doing a hand hug. I'm so pissed with Kerry that she cut that sequence, because I was bleeding out my eyes. But it was amazing, because Tony just whispered to me just before, they were going to release the dog, and he had armour on and there was all sorts of stuff, and he just said, if it gets too close, I'm going to finish it. Something like that. And I was like, okay, and then I spoke to Kerry afterwards, and it's because they used Alsatians to torture the guys back in the day. And he had to fight dogs. I mean, it's just insane to have to make this sentence out of my mouth. But I mean, he has had a fight with an Alsatian before in that kind of situation, and he had genuine fear. He had an issue that he was holding down, So there's a whole reality underpinning this. It's not just like, we just made a story. There's like a whole. So one time smoking a joint on the balcony with Fana and Tony, I'm sitting there just tripping, listening to them talk about politics, the state of South Africa, all the hopes we had. I remember getting dressed that morning when Mandela was released and watching it. 20 years later, I'm in Africa with these guys talking, and they lived it. And we all shared our disappointment at the corruption of the ANC and how nothing's changed, and it's actually getting worse. And the year after we shot it, we thought after the miners got abused, there was going to be another revolution. It's serious.
Yeah.
But since then, I mean, it's just amazing. I'm just sitting there listening to these guys talking for real, saying Tony sort of saying, look, we have to sort of wait our time, and Fire angrily saying, fuck that, like now's our time. And now he's just become a member of parliament. He's joined the ANC youth wing, and now Fire's putting his money where his mouth is. He's front and centre. I expect you'll see his face in Africa, in South Africa, fairly soon as a prominent figure. So the whole experience was kind of, the stories tied to the history of South Africa and the politics and the experience of shooting it. You know, it was a really big deal for me. I'm not going to start crying. Right?
How has the film been traveling? Has it been other film festivals?
Sorry, well, I mean, speaking frankly, you know, the first cut was with a different editor who didn't really like working with a woman director, to be frank. Failed director in his own right, and he sabotaged the edit, you know, and it wasn't a film that we made, and it didn't really go far in the festivals. This was recut. She connected with Michael Winsbottom's editor, who's also South African, and on her own dime she recut it in London. And so this is the first success that we've had with it. I'm profoundly disappointed. Bless you, Chris. I was worried, you know, that all the effort would go to nowhere, because it's still hard to sell a film with a black lead, particularly a South African black lead that's not known in the West. And it's a deep, dark story. There's no robots turning into cars and blowing stuff up. You know, it's like, you know, if we released that in '75, I reckon there'd be blood, you know, lines around the block. You know, so not yet, but hopefully soon. You know, she's just written a new one called Cash, which we'll shoot in London next year, which is killer. So
well, I think that's the potential of the films. I've been coming to the festival for years, and the films, particularly from South Africa, there's an infrastructure there for film production, so the quality is getting better.
Yeah.
I saw Four Corners the other night. That's an amazing film from South Africa as well.
Right,
So
great.
The content, the production values are getting better. It's a matter of getting a film coming out of South Africa, doing very well, and then, of course, the people will discover that. At this festival.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, it happened a little bit with Tutsi.
Yeah,
And,
one award.
you know, yeah.
Won an Oscar.
And there's a huge infrastructure there. I mean, forget the whole cultural history and the stories. I mean, it's as rich as any place. But you know, before I went there to shoot that movie, I'd shot like 18 commercials there. You know, so there's a huge community there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them came on board to help and support. Everybody knew they weren't going to pay their mortgages off on that job. You know? I think I actually lost money shooting that film.
You heard of a movie called Skin from South Africa?
I have not.
There was a film about 2008, 2009, self-distributed that movie. The movie came from South Africa, came here, it was an opening night film, never got a distributor, and we put a team together, we self-distributed. We put an Academy campaign on it, and it was nominated for 3 Image Awards. It was also the Golden Glove. We submitted. Sophia Kendall was the face of the movie.
Yeah, Sophia Canepa, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sam,
I saw it.
what's his name?
Sam O'Neill.
Sam O'Neill.
So that was
I'll connect you with Kerry for sure, because it sounds like if we'd known you last year, we would have been in a better position.
I was just wondering what other festivals you're going to be in after this is.
This film, I can take your details, I can let you know, I'm not sure. Kerry's in Cape Town right now. I've been begging her for 18 months to move here. So she's en route, you know, she will be here this year. I said you've got to be in it, if, you know, you've got to be here if you want to fight for it, really. So I'm not sure, you know. I wish the film had more momentum and had been in more festivals, you know, we went for it. You know.
Was that an actual situation, I mean, taken from the newspapers, Chinese abalone?
Yeah, it's all based in fact. And then what was just wild, one of those kind of confluences of events or luck, like 2 weeks into the shoot, the headline, everybody's bringing the paper, and it's literally Chinese triad kills, or is killed by locals over abalone. I mean, it definitely goes down, you know, because those things that those dark guys might make like it's ridiculous. It's just heartbreaking. Like $20 a week if they're lucky.
Oh, yeah.
And they do this, and in an hour they make $400.
Sure.
So you know, I would, you know, I mean, you know, it's a political and economic issue, you know, as much as anything else. Yeah.
2 questions. Was Yunan's role authentic in that it was a lead person that was in her position? And secondly, and I may have missed it, where did the funding come from, and what kind of support did you get for funding for the project?
The first question, I don't know whether she's historically accurate. I know that they're obviously trying bosses, you know. I think it was Kerry's decision positively to put, you know, a strong female lead in there. And also we were definitely following the tradition of the femme fatale. So, you know, if you look back at like Maltese folk and any of those kinds
It's
of
noir,
things,
yeah.
you know, it's a noir. I mean, that's what I was shooting. In my mind, I was shooting a modern noir film. So I didn't mind if you saw a sliver of scenes where Tony and then the rest of it fell away. You know, it's like, what was it? The funding. It was hard to raise. It was all privately funded. We struggled. You know, Ronnie was the money basically. I think we had it in the can for like $350. I mean, nothing. You know, I pulled the favour of Panavision.
$350,000?
Wow. Yeah, this was the dolly.
Yunnan speed?
I'm sorry. Well, Yunnan was paid for by the Chinese government.
That's right, yes.
Like, so, I'll do the pictures. She, you know, that was their attempt to integrate into the West a bit more and raise her profile and you know, sort of bring Chinese cinema, I suppose, to the fore, you know. So.
I have a question. Can you talk about the underwater scenes, considering you talked a lot about the handheld? What did you shoot on underwater, and what was that like for you?
We still shot Red Epic with Animal Things. We had a dive team, so I was on the top of the boat with Kerry with the monitor. And then we had guys go under. You know, it was actually the last day shooting. I left that boat directly for the airport. So yeah, I mean, there was in the original cut, it was like a pre-title sequence that just schooled the audience on this is what happens. The abalone comes out, and it followed the whole journey all the way across, and then the film starts. But I guess they pulled it a little further in. But it's nice, it gives production value. And then after the edit, Kerry realised that she needed some aerial, so a friend of mine went and shot them for her. So I think that gives a bit of scope to the scale as well. Yeah. I wish you could have seen my grade.
Well, I feel like I'm taking us down to a lower level with all these, industry questions, but I wanted to understand what made Mia think that he could go in and, give the guy that killed the Chinese guy to the woman, let her kill him, and then he can walk away. I wanted you to.
I don't think he thought, like, he went to see his son for the last time. He gave the key to his locker and the evidence to his assistant, who's Thomas as well, by the way. Thomas is just a bell rocket. I couldn't stop laughing with that guy. He is the funniest, loveliest man. You know, the sidekick. Like, he's playing this kind of docile pussy. He's a badass. He's like 5'2", in his head he's like 800 pounds. And he has a reality show. I mean, all I remember every night was coming home, smoking a joint and laughing until we fell asleep. The guy's just fantastic. And then he gets into character and he just lays this pussy, So he's got the locker. TJ goes to his son for the last time. I think he's definitely thinking he may not make it. And that's classic femme fatale, noir stuff anyway.
So he's just like, I'm going to crack this case. I'm going to do the right thing.
Yeah,
and
basically.
The consequences, I'll endure it.
Basically, yeah. I mean, Kerry's a proud South African and deeply political, and she grew up through apartheid, hated it. Left because her family left, and so she's trying to come back and tell those stories and have that discussion through cinema. So she was very clear that she wanted a shining light, like an almost impeachable hero. Like, it doesn't matter what happens to him, he's the good. He's clearly the good, And you don't see guys that dark being that good often, you know what I mean? So I think she definitely made that effort,
He had to die because his friend died. So his friend is a part of himself, so he knows that.
That's interesting. I'll mention that to Kerry. I mean, the thing about Patrick dying was just that it was supposed to be real and close.
Yeah. I'm talking about specialists. And specialists
right.
died.
Yeah.
It's called specialist death.
Yeah.
And he kills himself in a way because they both.
Yeah. You could say that. Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it.
I just wanted to pay you and the filmmaker a compliment because this entire movie I didn't really know what was going on, and that's hard to do. I think in this day and age, we're always kind of expecting twists and turns.
Right.
And I turned to my friend, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I love it because I don't know what's going on. It really, and I think that's really hard to do these days.
Yeah.
And like the gentleman was saying, because of how you kind of shot it like a 70s sort of Maltese Falcon kind of movie, it really grabs you, and it's just such a wonderful film. So thank you so much. I had a great time because I felt like I was a kid at movies. Like, oh my God, what's going on? Who is that? What's going on? Yeah, it was great. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.
That's nice.
I will skip that, so if you answer this, forgive me, but what about rehearsal time and how that all happened?
Well, Kerry and I kind of soft prepped for 8 years, she's a dear friend, so we'd be on Skype emailing backwards and forwards, and it almost happened and it didn't, As far as the actors, I'm not sure, I don't think she had an awful lot. I mean, you know, we were budgetarily challenged, there's no doubt about it. So, Fana and Tony, I think, are a cut above most of the other films. That scene where he says, you know, you change, you know, that people like us because we're gangsters. I mean, that could really have been us on the balcony talking that night. You know, that's almost them talking on the reel. So, you know, where's the line? You know, what was the point?
What is that line again? I was trying to remember the best line in the picture about something about there was trust until we discovered economics.
I mean, it's true. It's absolutely true. I can't remember exactly the line, but we had trust until we learned economics.
Yeah.
In fact, that's my favourite scene, lighting-wise. If it had my grade, that looks, it's kind of mauve and purple and just black and colour. Yeah. I mean, we're in some pretty hairy places where Tony sees that they've stolen the abalone, and in that house, that's like full-on proper ghetto, you know, in the shanties. And I took the best still I've ever taken in my life when we were scouting and looking around, and as part of that experience I was saying, it was like me and a couple of other white people, and the rest of everybody else was black. And that's unusual, you know. I've had an interesting life, but I haven't felt that. So I'm still just soaking it up and having this amazing. I feel this tug on my leg, and I just looked down and took a snap, and it's the best still I've ever taken. It's on my wall at my house. You know, it's two shanty kids, got a boy and his sister, just race, culture, age, geography, irrelevant. It was just a human moment, and just the smile on this kid's face, and this, you can see me reflected in her eye. It's just, you know, to me that's the future of where, if we've got a chance on this planet, that's what it is. You know, so look past it all, and I'd love you to see it. It's on my website.
I have something, this is so minimal, but I'm interested in it. So in the subtitle, there's very little punctuation. And so it made me feel like it was a part of the story because, you know, the sentences kind of went on and there were only punctuation was needed when it was needed. And I just wondered if that was
I'm not sure if that was intentional. I mean, there were three languages. There's one I can't pronounce. It's kind of closer. Closer. I don't know. You know. And then there's one of the other languages. I can't remember the name. I think that those languages deliver text so quickly that I think that the subtitles have to be quite an easy read, quite fast. But I can find out from Gary.
I'm just curious, so it's neat. I noticed it next to it. It gave me another texture to the film.
Right.
So they speak like that. They actually do the whole language.
Yeah, there's a phrase that's like Aussie. You've kind of got to make two noises at the same time. And I think you learn it from birth and
I'm
you get
saying
used to it.
all the languages sort of.
No, there's one language that says that, but there's 300 languages.
No, what I'm saying is,
Tribal
what we see in the
language.
film was that everybody was, they would start in another language and morph into English, and then go back to the other language. And I guess
that was intentional. I think that's like, it's like if you get angry and you drop into slang, but you speak properly when you're in an interview. It's that kind of, you know. I don't think it was any more than that really. But she was definitely trying to make an international film. It wasn't just about Cape Town. It was using that as a prison.
You may not know the answer. Bernice might know because she's a Chinese specialist, but I'm aware that the Chinese desire for a lot of protected seafood is fueling illegal business everywhere. And I'm just wondering, was this based on accurate stuff that happened there? And maybe you can answer that in a broader scheme.
I think you might have been out when I answered something similar, but I mean, it absolutely happens there. During the shoot, we had headlines of one morning when we came with the newspaper that had happened the night before. So it happens often. And when we were filming, the underwater team came up after the first go at it, and they showed us there were empty shells everywhere. We had got there about 2 hours after real smugglers had raided that area. So then what we brought with us was licensed abalone that we paid for, and then they put in position, cleared up the real ones that had been robbed already, and then we shot it. So it's absolutely real and happening, like, all the time. It's a problem.
And it was so common in the 60s, you could buy abalone jewelry for 10 cents.
Is that right?
Everywhere. And everybody ate abalone. In California, it was the cheapest seafood you could buy. There are walls of tile made of abalone, like downtown Music Center. I mean, it was just everywhere.
I didn't know that. Not now. Glad you enjoyed it.